Hello guys, welcome to a new video. In today's video we're gonna review Canon 1200D camera. So this camera is also known as Canon Rebel T5 in USA, but in rest of the Europe and rest of the world it is known as Canon 1200D, and this is a really nice popular camera from Canon, which was an entry-level camera launched in 2014. If you are new to my channel, consider subscribing it and don't forget to press the notification icon so that you can always get notified whenever I post a new video. As I already told you, this camera was launched in 2014, so it's almost 8-year-old. But if you talk about the image quality of this camera, it is still pretty good. Can you use this camera in 2022? Well, you will soon find out depending on the results I'm gonna put onto the screen. Let me talk about the technical specification of this camera. So this camera have a 18 megapixel crop sensor. So it has a 1.6 time crop factor. This is not a full frame camera. As is the case with all the Canon cameras which are APS-C, this has a 1.6 times crop factor. And 18 megapixels are not very less and not very huge either, but it's a really nice sweet spot. In 18 megapixel you can get great photos, you can take excellent image. It's a perfect camera like for your vacation, for your family and kids, those kind of events for taking photos. The autofocus on this camera is pretty good. It has 9 autofocus points, and in photography it works pretty well actually. The ISO range on this camera goes from 100 to 6400, which you can expand to 12800, and it performs quite well in low lighting situation. It is not the best performer when it comes to low lighting situation, but it does decent job. If you are using 50mm f1.8 lens along with the camera, then you can get even better job, because the prime lens will allow more light. You can get cleaner image, you can shoot at a lower ISO. The frame per second on this camera is only 3, so it is not the best camera when it comes to sports, wildlife or action photography. You need a camera having higher FPS for that. Maybe Canon 80D, Canon 90D would be a better choice for those kind of situation. And even the dynamic range on this camera is not that great. It's just 11.3, which is not so good considering some of the cameras in the similar price bracket. If you consider Nikon, most of the Nikon camera have better dynamic range. So this is not a great camera if you want to take landscape photos with really good dynamic range. The weight of the camera is around 480 grams, so it is not very heavy and not very light either, but it's perfect. When you hold it in your hand, it feels really good, and as is the case with most of the Canon camera, it is easy to use. Ergonomics are really nice, and the screen on the back of this camera is a fixed screen. It's 480 kilo dot resolution, so the resolution is not very high, but it does the job. If it had slightly higher resolution, you can see your images much sharper and much more clear on this screen. And all the navigation that you have to do are using these buttons. You don't have any touch screen on this camera. If I talk about the video aspects on this camera, this can shoot full HD video up to 30 frames per second. This camera also do not have any external mic input. It doesn't have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth or any kind of connectivity. Whatever options you have for file transfer is using by taking out this SD card from the camera and downloading the images onto your laptop. Now I'm gonna show you how this camera looks from close-up. So this is how the camera looks from the back. As you can see, it's a nice screen, not very high resolution, but not bad either. So these are the buttons, as is the case with most of the Canon camera. From the top it looks like this. So it has a similar kind of dial that you see on Canon 1300D and Canon 1100D and most of the other entry-level Canon camera. On this side you do not have anything. Usually we have SD card door over here, but the SD card on this camera goes inside the battery compartment. On this side we have some connectivity options. If you want to connect it to external monitor via HDMI, if you want to connect it to your laptop to download the images. And from the back it looks like this. So it is over here. We have this battery compartment and the SD card goes inside this battery compartment. And from the front it looks like this, and it's really nicely built. It feels good in your hand. It has a good build quality. Okay, now I'm gonna put onto the screen some of the sample photos that I've taken with this camera, and the photos look really nice, I must say. Most of the photos were taken using 18-55mm kit lens and some of them using 40mm f2.8 prime lens, and photos are really sharp. Even in low lighting situation, I was surprised how good photos this camera was able to take. The colors, the contrast and everything coming out of the photos looks really nice. So in terms of photography, I would still rate this camera quite highly. You can take pretty nice photos. If you are taking some photos in challenging lighting situation with dynamic range, then this is not the best camera. But if you have flat lighting, there is not much contrast between the background and the foreground, then this camera can do a great job. If you are using a 50mm lens along with this camera, you can take really nice portrait photos with this camera. So overall, I really like the photos and I would give it 7 out of 10 when it comes to photography. If we talk about the video capability of this camera, so this camera can shoot full HD video 30 frames per second, and the videos are very nice. They look really sharp and the colors, contrast, everything look really nice. Only two drawback with this camera is that the first thing is that this camera cannot have an external mic. It doesn't have an external mic input, so you cannot get a really good audio if you want to capture. And the second drawback is that once you have started the video recording, you cannot change your focus, so you have to fix your focus before you start the video. Otherwise, the trick that you can do is that you can change the lens and put it on manual focus MF, and then you can manually focus from one subject to another, so that will overcome that disadvantage. And regarding the audio, you can record the audio in an external device and later on sync that audio with the video in the post. But overall, the video quality looks really good. So I'm gonna put onto the screen the sample video that you can take with this camera. Hello guys, right now the audio that you are listening is directly from the camera, and this is how the video looks directly out of the camera. I am using the manual exposure mode and I have a shutter speed of 100 and an aperture of 4. ISO is auto, so it's gonna take care of any exposure change, whatever be the lighting situation if it is changing. So you can already see the details look really nice from the camera. Since this lens also have image stabilization in it, so you get a really very smooth footage. Already the video quality looks really good. Let me focus on this tree so you can see how good the details are. If I zoom all the way, so you can see still it looks really nice and sharp, and the background blur is also nice and decent at 55mm focal length, even though I am using a kit lens. There is only one drawback with this camera. So the drawback is that once you have started recording the video, you cannot move your focus from one place to another. Either you will have to switch to manual focus mode if you want to move your focus from one place to another. So if you want to start recording a video, so try to lock your focus onto the place or the subject where you want to have your focus. Just lock it and then start the video recording. So that is the only drawback that I see with this camera, but other than that, you can see how good the video footage looks. So right now I'm manually focusing and you can already see a hair. Right now this place is just near my home and there are some rabbits and hare that you can find over here. As you already saw, the video looks really nice actually. Now the final conclusion. Should you get this camera? And if you want to get this camera, for how much price can you get this camera? Well, you can get this camera used second hand for around $150, which would be a really good price for such a camera, because this camera can do full HD video and take great photos. So this camera would be a perfect choice for a beginner, because many other beginner camera cannot do either video, or some of the camera can do video but they are not so good in photography, but this camera is good at both of them. So definitely, if you are a beginner, if you want a camera which is really tight on budget, so then this camera can be a great choice for around $150. But if you look at the competitor camera, you can also get Nikon D3200 for almost the same price. And D3200 is a slightly better package compared to this camera, because that camera can also have an external mic input, but this camera cannot have. And if you want to have a Canon camera, then maybe you want to buy Canon 550D, because 550D can also have an external mic. So that would be a perfect camera both for video and photos as well. But if your primary focus is just to do some casual video work, but the main focus is on the photography, and you do not have really big budget, then this camera is a definitely great camera for you. So it is a perfect camera for beginner. Even in 2022 you can get great results with this camera. You can use all the EF lenses, you can use a 50mm prime lens and get really nice portrait photos with this camera. Alright guys, I hope you liked my video. If you liked my video, please consider subscribing the channel, and if you haven't pressed the bell icon yet, please press it so that you always get notified whenever I post new content. So I will see you in a new video.